Gautam Trivedi from Religare Capital as well joins in with his thoughts on the markets.
I think the market seems to be trending definitely higher on the back of foreign flows. I think domestic fundamentals and issues notwithstanding, I think the mood clearly is still extremely strong from a foreign flow perspective, and until that doesn't abate, I think the market will continue to edge up.
Gautam, as of now, liquidity signals are blowing strong. Everyone is convinced that tapering will get delayed. But what happens when tapering eventually starts? Because it's a matter of maybe a quarter, maybe 2 quarters, maybe 9 months. Tapering has to start.
Sure. I think it's a fair question, but we've got a bunch of things happening domestically which also will impact or potentially offset the tapering, if, and assuming, again, we don't know how much of the tapering is going to happen. Is it going to be $5 billion of tapering or 10 or more? So I think let's keep that also in perspective. But I think depending on the timing of the tapering, and if it's closer to the elections, which it probably will be, I think the history has shown us there's always been a pre-election rally in most years. So I think we will see that happening, and I think money will invariably end up coming to India irrespective. Then of course a lot depends on the timing of the tapering, if it happens after our general elections, and depending on the formation of the government at that point of time. So that, I think, could to a great extent offset the potential negative of tapering. But of course the economy hopefully starts to improve by then. So if that happens, we've got a couple of domestic factors that could coincide with the tapering, and hence to some extent offset the negative impact of tapering.
Gautam, not for the day or for the week, but for the quarter, what is your number one idea?
I think number one would be Infosys in the large liquid space, and among the mid caps I would put Tata Communications.
Do you think IT perhaps may be headed in for a long-drawn phase of correction or profit-taking?
No, I don't think so. I think now is a good time to actually look at buying some of these names if they were to correct another 5-7%. Simply because I think what we are witnessing in the IT space is similar to what we saw earlier on in the year in the consumer space, where we saw these stocks rally and touch lifetime highs. And in terms of valuations, can trading anywhere from 35 to 40 times. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting that the IT companies will trade at 35 to 40 times, but I think there's more upside to the IT names than people believe, because the fact is, foreigners are looking at still increasingly at forex plays in India, and I think the IT space offers that, plus the fact that clearly after this quarter, there's clear evidence of demand recovery from the United States.
So what would you recommend buying in IT? Give us 2 names.
Yeah, Infosys, like I said, is a name we continue to like. I think the transformation and the restructuring that Narayana Murthy has initiated will start to bear fruit over the next several quarters. So from a 12 to 18 month view, we love that stock. The other one is Tech Mahindra, though, of course, we've had a buy on it for over 12 months, and the stock now at the current levels is now at about 12 times forward earnings. And the question really people are asking is, will TechM, which is now the 5th largest Indian listed IT company, still continue to trade at mid-cap valuations? I think it's gone from 10 times to 12 times, and the question really is, will it be able to break the or join the big 4 in terms of valuation? So we continue to like the name, but I think there is resistance now at these levels that we see. I think so these 2 would be our top picks within the IT space. Of course, we like TCS as well, but I think that's now in the stratosphere in terms of valuation.
Gautam, in general, market had limited or low expectations from banks, but private banks surely have conducted themselves rather well. Yes Bank, IndusInd Bank, Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, all private banks have delivered. Is there a case now to buy into banks? Do you think the storm has come and gone for banks? Do they offer deep value?
The private banks don't necessarily offer deep value, but are definitely attractive. And I think would still continue to recommend some of these names. Yes Bank is a name that we like. We just upgraded the target price to 475 this morning, post of results. On the PSUs, though, I think there's still a lot of discomfort, and we don't really see that much buying coming in. A lot of people are waiting for results from the big PSUs. SBI obviously is usually the last of the lot, but a lot of focus on what the numbers are going to be. I think until we don't see the numbers, limited interest in PSUs at this point.
Gautam, what is it that you hope to see from ACC Ambuja after what Ultratech did, and does it seem like the pain for the cement industry is going to last another quarter or so?
I think we prefer Ultratech to ACC and Ambuja, but having said that, I think from an industry's structural standpoint, demand weakness does still persist, which we've seen, and I think we'll obviously get the numbers of Ambuja and ACC this afternoon and give us further evidence of the demand slowness that's been ongoing for the last few quarters. But having said that, we've seen typically in a pre-election year, cement stocks rally, number one. Number two, in years, over the last 10 years, we've done analysis of years which had good monsoons, and of course this being a very good year in terms of monsoon. We've seen the cement stocks rally in the period from September to December. So on an average, for example, Ultratech cement has rallied 20% between September to December in the years where the monsoon was very good, which is over the last 10 years. So given that evidence, I would actually start to look at these stocks if they were to correct from these levels. I think these from a 12-month perspective.
Gautam, metals as well have staged a decent amount of rally, all of last week and, couple of days as well. Metals have held out. Anything that you like out of there, or do you think these are just trading bouts coming in?
I think the overall metal space, with the exception of a Tata Steel, which has obviously a bigger overseas business than domestic business, has sort of run its course in terms of performance. The one stock that we still continue to like actually is Hindalco, and I think if you look at some of the international aluminum companies in the US as well as Chalco in China, they're up anywhere from 5 to 9% overnight. So I think there is demand recovery coming back into China, and I think Hindalco will be the stock to watch.
Gautam, what is it that you're hoping to see from Hero Motocorp today? We've seen what Bajaj Auto did. It's been a good performance. Do you think from this quarter onwards, perhaps we may see a turnaround when it comes to autos, in particular, of course, the two-wheelers?
Yes, I think we've been actually fairly bullish on the two-wheeler space. Again, the monsoon effect on rural demand and rural incomes obviously is going to be positive, which bodes very well for the two-wheeler space, both Bajaj and Hero. And of course, even TVS has rallied about 30% since the bottom in the past few weeks. So we continue to recommend the two-wheeler space to investors. But the other stock which I want to bring on and talk about is Mahindra & Mahindra. It's got a lot going for it. That's the other stock which has historically rallied about 20% between September to December in a year where the monsoon has been good. But I think do bear in mind, in a pre-election year, stocks like M&M tend to actually gain because a lot of the political parties end up buying the Scorpios and Boleros for campaigning, and that obviously gives a big thrust to the volumes for Mahindra, which of course derives 2/3 of its SUV sales from the rural area versus the urban area. So a lot of the competition notwithstanding, a lot of the competition, whether it's from Renault Duster or from Nissan Terrano, is limited to the urban areas and not the rural areas. And I think if you strip out the value of M&M's holding in Tech Mahindra, for example, which is up 70% and is at about 150 rupees a share. So you look at the core business, it's only trading at 9 times forward earnings. So Mahindra actually would be one of our top picks today in the auto space.
I want to talk about state-owned banks. We already got your view on some of the private sector banks as well. But are they looking attractive enough to be bought right now? Because the valuations are short cheap. But do you think in terms of the NPA quotient now we may see some of these names bottom out? And also the finance minister's announcement of capital infusion would augur well for these names.
Well, I think, like I said earlier on the show, there is a bit of discomfort even now with the PSUs. We've not heard the last from the RBI with respect to NPL recognition. The new governor did allude to that they would shortly be announcing a list of measures that would make NPL recognition norms stricter and make it more difficult for restructuring assets. So until we don't see clarity on that, I would hold off on buying PSU banks.
What about real estate and infrastructure then, Gautam? Is what we're seeing right now just a trading move with the market sitting at a 3-year high?
I think this is a trading move. There's not that much confidence even now in the infra space, even though a lot of these stocks are still down as much as 90%. I think until we don't see any significant steps taken by these companies to restructure the debt and or real evidence of asset sales, I think people are not going to put money behind these names right now. On the real estate space, I think there is a lot of buzz in the market with respect to potential new laws on REITs, which will finally make REITs attractive from an investor standpoint and make them a success. Now, if that were to come out, which I think is still a 3 to 6 month story, but whenever that does come out, it will be usually positive for the real estate companies.
So what is it that you're watching out for in terms of the realty names?
The names that still attract attention and interest are pretty much 3, Prestige, Sobha and Oberoi. Outside of that, DLF, people have traded the stock, but really nobody's putting long-term money to work in DLF or Unitech for that matter. So it's only pretty much limited to these 3 names.
Gautam, you earlier talked about M&M as well being a hot favorite with you. What about names like a Tata Motors, which are still running up on account of a global, exposure and that quotient really doing well?
No, we like Tata Motors as well. Sorry, I guess I forgot to mention that, but clearly it's not an India rural play, but I guess we were discussing that. But yes, we continue to like that stock, and I think this has definitely got more legs.
So what happens then, Gautam, for the overall market, and when do we see a hiccup to this current rally? Do you think that is only going to come about once the Fed decides to taper, whenever that happens?
I think so, because the interest in India has come back in a significant way. Having said that, let's keep a few things in mind. If you look at the Nifty year to date, of the 50 stocks, only 18 actually in the positive. If you look at the CNX MCap, which is still down year on year 12%, year to date 12%, sorry. Only 33 stocks out of 200 in the CNX MCap actually are in the positive. So there is a whole universe of stocks out there that haven't really moved, and the rally has been quite narrow. Secondly, do keep in mind that in spite of all the issues that we've had on the ground, current account deficit, weak currency, lack of reforms, etc., and of course, not to mention domestic investors fleeing the market. Foreign institutional flows continue to sustain the market, and foreigners continue to like the market. Year to date, the amount of money that's come in is only down 15% on a year-on-year basis. So foreigners continue to remain pretty bullish about the India story.
Gautam, good chatting with you. It always is. Glad to catch up with you.